Back in 2021, Inkle released a fun little murder mystery called Overboard, where you were tasked with investigating a cruise ship and dealing with its eccentric passengers. Now, 4 years later, the Overboard series is back with an all-new mystery that takes us to an all-girls boarding school where rumors and gossip float like the wind. With a new cast and location, it's time to investigate what happened when a student gets tossed out of a window. Oh sure, the entire school seems to think they know what happened, but they're wrong. And it's up to the player to either crack the case or pin it on somebody else. Find out how that goes when I review Expelled, an Overboard game. The young lady in fear of being expelled is Verity who definitely, absolutely, probably, maybe is responsible for pushing Louisa out the window. And not just any window, but a centuries-old stained glass window at Miss Mulligatawny's school for promising girls. Told through extremely one-sided flashbacks, Verity recounts what happened on that fateful day, which may include bending the truth here and there whenever it benefits her. She'll need to lie, steal, gossip, and manipulate everybody around her in order to not only prove her innocence, but, most importantly, to not get expelled. Of course, proving your innocence is a lot easier said than done, especially in the year 1922. With no surveillance cameras or modern forensics to reveal the truth, Verity is going to need to rely on her classmates and teachers, all of which have their own agendas. We learn early on that Louisa had her own friend group, while another student wants to replace Verity in the school play. There's also gossip and intrigue floating around that may help answer some of the questions. Or it could also send our hero on a wild goose chase. Through conversations, clue hunting, and just being at the right place at the right time, Verity hopes to be able to clear her name, or at the very least, pin the crime on somebody else. Now, believe it or not, all of this is happening on the final day of the term. And that doesn't give Verity a whole bunch of time to crack the case. The conceit here is that you're going to need to replay the same day over and over and over again, retelling it until everything falls into place. The good news is that Verity will retain all of the knowledge that she learned from the past retellings, so you won't necessarily need to repeat the same conversations every single time. This opens her up to investigate a different part of the school with each new playthrough, and then act on the clues that she learns the next time around. The game's set up so you can't just beat it in a single play or two, but rather you have to keep peeling back the layers until you have a firm understanding of what happened to get Verity out of trouble. And even after that happens, it's gonna open up an even deeper and darker secret about the school and her classmates. Like a lot of Inkle's past games, Expelled is really just a series of conversations. Everybody has a story to tell or information to give, so it's all about spending time with them and finding the right path to extract the clues. What makes this challenging is that Verity is already unfairly judged because she came to the boarding school through a scholarship. To both her peers and the adults that control this school, she's seen as a bit of an outcast. It's easy to understand why somebody may accuse her of this terrible crime, and it certainly doesn't help her case that she was seen at the crime scene by at least one other person. But Verity is adamant that she didn't do it and is being framed. And you know what? Maybe she's right. Because you're constantly talking to people, a lot of this game revolves around learning the gossip of each student and then using that to manipulate the situation. Verity may also need to spread a few rumors of her own, or perhaps even just reveal the ugly truth about a fellow classmate. A lot of this game comes down to figuring out where to go, who to talk to, and what to say. You can have very different conversations with the same person in two different playthroughs, depending on how much information you have at the time. Finding that seed of evidence will allow you to push forward and learn something new, which you can use to either find the important clues or advance the story. Now, as she investigates the school, Verity may need to be a little naughty in order to find some of the clues. We aren't exactly given a health bar like in most games, but rather we have a way to find out how naughty the wannabe detective has been over the course of all of the retellings. This meter will go up when she has to lie to somebody, or worse, like breaking into the medical cabinet or planting evidence on a schoolmate. Some of this naughtiness will go away as she does things that are expected of a promising young girl, such as showing up on time to her classes. Of course, going to geometry class is gonna interfere with her gathering evidence, so you're gonna need to make a lot of hard decisions about whether it's more important to do the right thing or to be a little naughty. One thing that I really like about this game is how it always feels like you're learning something new with each retelling. Even if you only learn one new thing, that'll open up a whole new avenue full of possibilities. There was never a playthrough that felt pointless or like I was just spinning my wheels. And honestly, I couldn't wait to jump back in and take advantage of all the new information that I learned the last time around. And it's really more than that, because you're going to start to memorize where everybody is and then what they're doing from 1 minute to the next. For example, you may need to clean up a bunch of evidence before a certain person shows up, something that adds a lot of tension to the game. This is the kind of narrative game that Inkle is so good at making. They've given us a small cast full of incredibly memorable characters, each with something to hide or reveal. The conversations are usually interesting, sprinkled with funny jokes and witty turn of phrases. Verity is just a lot of fun to be around, as she's a little sarcastic and not afraid to be a bit naughty. She's believable as an overly dramatic schoolgirl, so it makes a lot of sense that nobody would believe her story at first. Of course, it helps that the character designs are so expressive. The graphics are simple and clean, looking almost like a board game brought to life at times. The cast isn't overly detailed, but the artwork does an excellent job of conveying how they feel from one moment to the next. The old-timey music also goes a long way to remind you that the game is set more than 100 years ago. But even if this is 1922, some things never change, like gossip and scandals. Look, I don't care what year it is, teenagers are brutal. Now, for as much as I enjoyed replaying the story after gathering up new information, there were some playthroughs where I felt hopelessly lost. It's easy to get caught up in a clue that isn't all that important in the long run, especially when you don't have a whole lot to go on. There aren't a whole lot of locations to investigate either, which can get a little boring after a while. And let me tell you, you're either gonna cheer or you're gonna groan when the other shoe drops, revealing a fun twist that shakes the game up in some interesting ways. I liked how everything played out, but I could see some people not going along with the more outlandish bits. Look, the truth is, Expelled won't be for everybody. It's perfectly in line with Inkle's past games, which have emphasized an interactive story over gameplay. If you're not already on board with that style of graphic adventure game, then every single part of Expelled is going to be like nails on a chalkboard. I can see some players being more than a little frustrated at some of the limited conversation options, as more astute detectives may be able to crack the case long before uncovering all the important clues that they need to beat the game. However, that does not describe me, as I had a thoroughly good time with this mystery. I loved the setting, the style, and of course, the gossip. I liked that Verity has to clear her own name, as it added a real sense of urgency that might not have been there in a more passive adventure game. This is a fun and unique way to tell this kind of mystery, and it kept me glued to the screen with every new retelling. Let me tell ya, Inkle is really on to something truly great with this Overboard franchise. The case is afoot, and everybody's pointing the finger at Verity. Help her clear her name by finding clues, spreading gossip, and maybe even pinning the crime on somebody else. But watch out, because this caper is full of twists and turns that you won't see coming. While replaying the same day can get a little repetitive after a while, and some armchair detectives will solve the case before Verity has all the information, Expelled is a wonderfully written mystery that is dripping with style. Let me tell you, this Overboard sequel is a great reminder that Inkle truly is one of the best developers working today. Hey, thanks for watching my review. If you liked what you saw here, then you should know that we post new reviews and features almost every day. Now, here's the question I have for you. What is video games' greatest murder mystery? Doesn't have to be the focus of the game, just as long as there's a murder and a mystery. Let me see your picks in the comments below. In other news, we're going to be back later this week with both reviews of Rendering Ranger R2 Rewind and Shadow of the Orient. While you wait for that, I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then.